Hello, hello, hello. Yep, I see the live button going. Just coming out a little bit early and make sure everything seems to be working and figured out how. Last time I was trying to figure out how to put a poll in. So I did it one time and then I wasn't able to do it the next time, but I figured out I have to do it in the video, not through StreamYard, but in the video itself. So I put a little poll up there to see. We'll check it at the end of the video and see what we came up with in terms of people who use runes, which ones they use, and all that good stuff. Hello, I see Dara and Groot and Deirdre and Alicia and Sue. Drive careful. Miss Melanie and Ange. I know Jamie is on her way back. She got her, she was at her orthodontics and she sent me a picture of her Christmas smile out there. She's not home yet, but she's listening. She was so cute. She sent me a picture of a big old smile and she has braces. So they put Christmas color braces on. It was definitely made my day. So today we are going to be talking about this Runic Tarot. Now, I know many of you watched the walkthrough with me as we walked through the Heaven and Earth Tarot. I can't remember if I did this live or not live. I can't remember. I had only purchased this deck because I was waiting for this deck and I thought it would be kind of cool to compare the two because they're by the same artist. Now, I ordered the Runic Tarot from Llewellyn and it got lost. It was sent through FedEx. FedEx didn't get lost, actually. FedEx delivered it to somebody else. Let's be honest about what happened to my deck. So I given up. They put in a I put in a missing whatever, like a ticket, and nothing happened from it. And so I contacted Llewellyn. I'm like, I don't know if you're going to do anything about it, but here you can clearly see it was delivered to a house, not to my PO box. They were gracious enough to send me another deck, which they didn't have to do. I didn't think it wasn't their fault. It was FedEx's fault. But they did send me another tarot or another deck, and that too seemed to have gotten lost. It didn't, it just wasn't showing up. And truthfully, I just gave up on it. Of course, the night I was like, okay, it's just not coming. It's just two of them are now lost. Am I really going to reorder this again and effectively spend $60 on this deck instead of $30? I don't know. I was really going back and forth about it, even though I was super anticipating this deck. I went ahead and ordered it on Amazon and it came the next day. So the second deck found its way to me, of course, the next day after I ordered it. I was able to return the other one, but still, it was like, really? So I've already looked at this because I did want to take a look at the guidebook because if you remember, I think this is absolutely gorgeous book or deck, but I do think that the guidebook kind of let down through whatever circumstances. I think the problem being that you have a deck creator and a book writer, and they really weren't able to sync up together. But it was, in terms of as a user, the way that there are so many symbols on the Heaven and Earth Tarot, down at the bottom, there are all these symbols that really aren't laid out clearly in the deck itself, but it's absolutely gorgeous, right? And so I'm not going to repeat going over that, but I did want to just kind of compare them at the end. But I was, because of that guidebook issue, I was curious how it was gonna play out in the Runic Tarot. So I have looked at it. I'm also teaching a rune class right now. Well, it's a book. It's one of my mixed ones where we're reading The Way of Weird, and then we're also kind of deeper diving into the Anglo-Saxon runes. So at the end of last week's class, we took a look at the majors together with a bunch of people who obviously are very interested in runes. So I've looked at this a couple times, not so much the minors that much. So we're gonna walk through that, and then I'll pull this back out and we'll take just do a little bit of a comparison of the two of them. You know, Penny Pinch, some people have said, I've not seen, this was the only one that I saw, and so other people have said because of the book issue, you know, just not being maybe needing the book because it really wasn't worth it in the Heaven and Earth, that they would just get the smaller set. But I haven't seen that smaller set anywhere. So I think the only difference is that you don't have the full guidebook. But maybe somebody on here knows that more about that than I do, because clearly I've not seen that version of the deck anywhere. Even if I must not have looked closely on Amazon. I had just gone to Llewellyn site and just pulled it up and ordered it. I didn't know that there were two options. I possibly would have gotten the smaller option had I been aware of that, because I don't, you know, I don't use guidebooks a ton after initially reading them. So I probably would have gone with a smaller one. But because I had this version of the Heaven and Earth, I probably would have bought this. Okay, so I want to do a couple caveats here. I know caveats are annoying, but I think it's important. I did not get this deck, or when I saw that this deck was coming out, I wasn't excited about this deck because of the runes, right? So I am a lover of runes. It's one of my favorite sets. I found that I like metal or heavy sets. I like a good thunk when I cast my sets. I did have, since my first rune set in the 90s was a stone set. So I guess it kind of makes sense that I just like that heavier thunking versus some of the lighter woods. But anyways, I love runes, but I love casting runes. And so I never was excited about this particular deck because, oh, there's going to be runes on it. I was more excited about the deck because it was going to be a Norse, you know, Northern tradition artwork style that we don't really have. You know, we have a lot of different decks with a lot of different cultural lenses, but we don't really have a lot that are easily got. I think there's one that I don't think is easy to get. And so none of the artwork has really called to me, and there's not many of them. So I really I'm not super caring over the runes too much. I like that they're there and that they will add sort of flavor because runes were obviously used by this culture. So I do love that, but I never intended that I would use this to pull runes. Does that make sense? And I truthfully, after having looked at it, I don't really think that you should go in it with that expectation. If you're interested in using runes, I think you should get a set of runes and work with the runes that way. And this is to no fault of the deck creator, right? Whenever you take two systems and smash them together, whether that is tarot and Kabbalah, tarot and astrology, tarot and runes, tarot and I Ching, whatever you're going to layer on, take two systems and put them together. Number one, it's a mashup. So you're going to have to do some wiggling to make it fit. Number two, everybody's going to do it different. These people aren't necessarily going to pick the exact same rooms that I would pick for every single tarot card because that's the way they see them. And that's great. If I want my own deck to be exactly the way I want the runes on it, I would have to make my own deck, right? So I just wanted to put that caveat out there. I really wasn't looking for this deck because of the runes. I was looking for the deck because of the Norse influence. Now, the second caveat is I understand. I've seen Heaven and Earth as a gorgeous deck, a beautiful deck. This is an idealized view of Northern cultures, right? A Norse cultures. This is very much a beautiful, idealized version of it. I am 48% Scandinavian in my genetic DNA, and I personally would not want to live back in the olden days in the way it really was. I don't think we'd want to be transported back there, and if we were, it wouldn't be quite this beautiful, would it? So I'm aware of that. This is the case of most tarot decks, that they are beautiful renditions of whatever they're focusing on, and I'm okay with that, and I go into it with that knowledge. So those are my two caveats. Excuse me. Okay, let's stop with the caveats and start taking a look at this. We are going to take a good look as usual. Let's see, how can we do this? Let's zoom out a little bit more until we need to go in further for the cards. So, just like the Heaven and Earth, this is a low Scarabeo, and of course Llewellyn is the I don't know what you would call them, the distributors, I guess, of Low Scarabeo in the United States. So that's why you can purchase their decks on Llewellyn's website. So, but it looks like a typical Low Scarabeo isn't really known for this type of boxes. They're more those nice, solid, so sometimes two-piece boxes and or tuck boxes. But this is more like a Llewellyn. You can see it got pretty beat up. That again was postal problems, not the problem of Llewellyn. But it's a nice magnetic box. It has the guidebook. It has the runes in the box. It's a typical Llewellyn box. They've already edged it because they need it to be edged. But we'll come back to the cards in a second. So, good box. It holds everything that you need it to hold. Not much complaints with decks or deck boxes for the most part anymore for mass market books. So now, one thing that you might notice if you have the Heaven and Earth is that we actually have Jack Sephiroth, who is the artist from the deck, and you have Jamie Elford, who is also on the Heaven and Earth. She is the one who writes the guidebooks, and then in this case, we also have Alan Dempster. So I think that this was smart, right? And I think that it breaks it down. Yeah. So the concept is by Jack Sephiroth and Alan Dempster. The artwork and design is Jack Sephiroth. The Runic research. So, I mean, this is good, right? This is good news that we had somebody focused specifically on the runes was Alan Dempster. And then we have the book by Jamie Elford. Because from what I understand from the Heaven and Earth, if you can't contact and have back and forth with the creator to know what all the symbols are, how are you supposed to write about it? Like, that's kind of having to make a guidebook with your hands tied. So I sympathize with that situation. So I think it's good. It was a good sign that they got somebody to specifically focus in on the runic research. I still don't think that this guidebook pulled off really a good working with runes section in this guidebook, but that's my personal opinion, and we will talk about that as we go. So you have your typical, you've got your table of contents, you've got your intro to tarot. You can see that they have kept the cups. They are horns. It's a horn, which you would see obviously in more Nordic cultures there, and back in the olden times. We have shields instead of pentacles, and then we have wands, and we have swords, and they've kept the traditional pages, knights, queens, and kings for the courts is what we have. Hello, people coming in. So then we have an introduction to the runes, a little bit of history here about the runes, just a brief intro into it. And then there is a table of the runes here that are just the Elder Futhark. Now, the problem is that this deck doesn't just use the Elder Futhark, and we'll talk about that more when we get to the minors, but the majors have the Elder Futhark in them, and then each one of the minor suits has a different set of runes because there are multiple runes. The runes are, as we know, an alphabet, and the Elder Futhark is a Proto-Germanic alphabet which branched off and went into the different Germanic languages. languages. So then you end up having, you know, the younger Futhark, as the language changed, that lost some of the letters weren't needed, and so they went down to a smaller set. You have Icelandic runes coming out. You have the Anglo-Saxon runes, because English is a Germanic language, and you have that expanding for the sounds that we needed for the expanding language of the Anglo-Saxon language. So there's multiple sets of runes. So, but the problem is, sorry, I shut the book. They give you this information, you know, showing you very clearly what each of the Elder Futhark is, and then they give you this graph here where they show that the Elder Futhark is associated with, there's this one, but two cards have two, because there's 24 Elder Futhark, and there's obviously less cards. And so they have listed out the major arcana, the god or goddess that is associated, they've associated with the major arcana, and the rune. Now this is great. I think this is really helpful to have this here. But the problem is that they don't do that. They only do that for the major arcana. And it's actually quite a bit more confusing in the minor arcana, where they're using different rune sets, but they don't give you a chart so that you know, okay, this is the rune that we're looking at, that we're associating it with, and you can't see that direct comparison. I really think there should have been a page like this for each of the rune sets, because the whole deck is not based on the Elder Futhark, but a mix of multiple rune sets. So it gets, to be honest, the minors get a little bit confusing. Even if you're comfortable with runes, I consider myself comfortable with runes. I teach runes, and you know, I'm ever learning. I'm not some massive expert here, but I feel like I'm comfortable with runes. And I even, you know, in the minors, we're having to say, okay, what? Like, what is this one? Like, what are they trying to do here? And so, but we'll get to the minors in a minute. So I just feel like, again, if you're going to lean this heavy into a secondary system, then have the information available for the person. So if you are thinking you can get this tarot deck and it's going to teach you how to, you know, work with runes, that's not its purpose, right? And so I would say, no, you know, you're going to have to get some other resources. But they start out strong with the major arcana, at least. So then, like with the Heaven and Earth, we get a beautiful full page illustration of the card in the major arcanas. There's no pictures in the minors, but we have these gorgeous large images, and they are absolutely beautiful. The artwork is stunning on the deck. There's no question. So and then what they give you is they give you a description of the card, which I appreciate. What are we looking at? What are we supposed to be looking at? What are we supposed to be seeing here, right? Then they give you the meaning. So here's, you know, the meaning of the card, how you should sort of be interpreting this card. They give you some upright and reverse keywords, and then they give you a section on interpreting the runes. So this is something they did much better in this guidebook, because they do give you the rune they do good at it in the major arcana. We'll talk about the minor when we get to the minor. I do think it drops off in helpfulness in the minors, but I'll talk about that when we get there. So they have Yera. So this is good that they're saying, how are they listing it? Because there are multiple ways to pronounce it. It is a Proto-Germanic language. Even the scholars don't know exactly how it was pronounced. And so you have to kind of decide where you're going to land and stick with it, because there are multiple ways. It doesn't mean that that person is wrong. It means they've chosen to interpret it in a different way, but they give it to you. This is what it is. It's Yera. How do I pronounce it? Yera. Here's a couple keywords, right? Harvest, joy, and natural things. And then they give you some basis as to how you would, what that rune is about and how you might interpret it. So I think, again, in the majors, they did a good job. Now, you can't always find it. Sometimes they're super, super obvious, and other times, now this is a full rendition. Let's grab the cards here just for a second. Oh no, wait a minute. Here we go. Here's the full, here we go. I'm like, oh no, did I not put them back in order? We may have some, here. Let me, okay, you guys can't see good. I don't want to get them out of whack here. Okay. We may have to do some work once we get to the minors to get it straightened out. Okay. We were looking at them in my rune class. So, you know, this is the size card that we have. Just looking at this card, you might not spot the rune. The rune is actually on this bag at his waist. So let's zoom in here a little bit. And so I don't know if you can see that, but here we have Yera right here. And there were some that I have to say, some are super, super obvious and others are not so obvious. And certainly in their smaller form, they are a little bit sometimes difficult to see. Again, I'm okay with that. I have no intention of using this deck to pull runes. If I'm going to pull a rune, I'm going to pull a rune. So I'm okay with that. But you do have to look on some of these. We don't have all the symbols like we had with Heaven and Earth. We just have the title of the card in this runic script. I would prefer just a bar with a cleaner script. Some of my, we were kind of laughing in class because it looks like if you've been working with runes for a while, you're kind of saying, oh, is this Ruic? Ruic, because this would be Hagalaz, which is an H sound. It wouldn't be an N, but it's made to look like the runes, and I understand why they did it there. But that's the that we have at the bottom, and then the runes themselves are sometimes. Let me get an example of one that is. So we're gonna here. This is going to be like showing before we get to, we may use the large size. Here we go. Like here's a real obvious one, right? So we have a very obviously glowing rune and an obvious glowing rune for her at the lovers. So it's quite obvious, but sometimes they are not so obvious as all that. There are some, yes, Phyllis, there are some ones that you have to really hunt for. I think the one that I had the biggest trouble with was the high priestess, and this has to do with my own eyesight, right? But again, if we are looking at this card and trying to see where are the runes, find the runes, I know where these are at, and I still, when I look at it, I really don't see them, even though I know where they are because they are in her hair. Oops, 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 oops. There we go. So see, we have those little discs with urus all in her hair and around her neck. But in this card, that's not necessarily super easy to spot, especially if you don't have the best of eyesight. Still a cool card, but yeah, sometimes it's definitely find the rune. And then a lot of the times it's quite obvious where it's glowing and you're very clear where the runes are. So we'll wait till we get to one that's interesting, and then I'll read the whole thing so that you can get an idea of what the guidebook says. But let's pull the cards out, and we'll kind of go back and forth talking about the guidebook as we go along. So here is the backs of the deck, which are really gorgeous. They are mostly black and gold, but then this line work here, I don't know if you can see, this line work here is like in a very, very dark blue. So it's really gorgeous. I think it works great with the theme of the deck. I blacken the edges. They do not come that way, but I think you should just immediately do so because, you know, it finishes the deck. It doesn't look right with white, with the white sides. So but they don't do that for you. You got to take out a good old marker and do that for yourself. Okay, let's zoom in here as close as we can to spot those runes. Can we inch a little closer? Oops, now the camera's like fading down on me there. There we go. We'll get as close as we can. Of course, I'll be picking these up a lot to show you what we're looking at here. So it may not be of any point. So again, each of the majors are associated with a god or goddess, and this is where we're just gonna put it out on it. We're gonna put all the caveats out on the table. My biggest disappointment in this deck, because again, I didn't really get the deck because of the runes. I got the deck more as a Norse focused deck. And it's really kind of surprising, if I would even say shocking to me, as most of the people in my class that when we were looking at them, that hell is not in the major arcana. I really am not sure why that would have happened. And the image of hell, which is in the Five of Cups. I think it's in the Five of Cups. She looks rather bored, and it's not a very powerful image of hell. So that to me was quite surprising and very disappointing. I feel like there would have been a way to work hell into the major arcana, and I think as a major goddess figure she should have been in the major arcana. And then again, that the card that she is in isn't really that indicative of her power in many ways, is disappointing to, I think, people who would be working with Norse traditions. I think that that would be surprising. So that's my major, like, ugh, like a lot of the other stuff is like, oh, whatever, but that one was a big one, right? That's like, oh, okay, I get that we all have different ways of looking at it. Yeah, I know, Jonathan. I'm just kind of and again, even if you mix up where you put hell, that's fine too. I like people doing different things is great. But to not have her in the majors and then to have her card be kind of, she looks kind of bored, which we'll get to obviously when we get there, was disappointing and doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So that's my one major disappointment of the deck there. So we'll just get that out in the open as we go. But it's beautiful. I mean, there's no question it's gorgeous. So here we are starting with Freyr. And they do, again, they give you a chart that gives you the Arcana card, who is the god or the goddess in there, although they really left out one there. And then what is the rune that they're associating it with? Some of them having double runes, obviously, because there's more runes than major arcana cards. Some of them make sense, like the lover, you have two people there, so it makes sense to have two runes. And I think the other one was the moon, yeah, which made sense there in the way they depict. I love how they depicted the moon. So it made sense where they did double up. I think it was just the lovers. Yeah, the lovers and the moon, and they did a good job in how they picked having to double up the runes. So there's that. But again, I really like this. I like that we have, instead of a dog, that we do have the golden boar there. I am not going to try to slaughter the name of the golden boar, but they do get, well, let's just go ahead and read the full so you get an idea what you get. So the god Freyr walks through the fields in a ravine. There are snow-covered hills behind him. He holds his head up towards the sun, and the rays shine down warmly across his face. Freyr, and it puts it in italics so that you know that this is a important personage, right? Freyr does not have a sword at his side, but on his shoulder. The sword, I don't know how to pronounce that, Lavatine. I grew up reading Norse mythology myself, never hearing it. So I slaughter, and same thing with Welsh mythology. So I slaughter all of the names. Holds a small bundle. Golden threads keep the package tightly closed, while his traveling cloak billows in the wind. A small pouch hangs from their belt. He has fingerless gloves on and golden bracers for protection. Gulden Sporty, the golden bristled, walks next to his side, is his golden boar. So that's what and this is also associated with a Dutch fairy tale called The Pig with Golden Bristles, which I thought was a cool random thing I wanted to add there. But there's also some connections across cards, whereas this sword is a sword that was made to slay a rooster, and then we see obviously the rooster here in the Magician. So I like how there were some crossovers of some of the stories. Yes, this is the same artist as Heaven and Earth Tarot. So I like image descriptions because it sometimes draws your attention to the things that are important for you to draw your attention to. So the meaning that is written here is the Fool in Tarot suit appears as a beginning, a middle, or an end of a sequence. Even the card's number 0 displays a never-ending loop. The Fool has a perpetual beginner's mind, which they use to their advantage. Never being a part of any given tribe, the Fool wanders around and bears witness to the world's actions and activities. Don't overburden yourself. Take only what you need to travel and step out into the world to explore. Adventure is the name here. Enter the practice with a beginner's mind and pass no judgments. Freyr appears as the Fool because of how well liked he was to all. Fools have no ill will or intent towards others. They are who they are. One Norse story tells how Freyr was given a collapsible ship, which served as the archetype for the famous Viking longships. While in the water, I'm not going to say the name of this ship because you'll all laugh at me, was seaworthy and the sails filled the air. This ship and this golden boar reminds us to heed the call of travel. Surrender to those new notions. It's your chance to break away from what you know and set out to change the world, to carve your fortune for something new. Trust that you have everything you need to take this step out and that you will land on solid ground. Open yourself up to possibilities. So then it gives us some keywords. Upright, have faith, begin a journey, freedom, push through the challenges. Reversed, reluctant to change, being blocked, feeling restrained, fixed position, unblock yourself. And then it gives us the interpreting of the runes, which again, they announced that it is, oops, sorry, over here. They give you the name, Yera, how to pronounce it, harvest, joy, natural things, loosely translated as year. I think it's more loosely translated as harvest, but that's, Vikings were an agricultural society and they relied on the harvest to provide for them year after year. Yera contains the joy and arising of watching the world change between the cycles. This is a rune of time and passing, transformation and balance. Freyr is a perfect pairing for this rune because he is associated with peace and prosperity. He brings the sun and the joy it contains, which means a good harvest. Call upon Yera when you desire a prosperous outcome. They don't put that fairy tale in there. I was Googling something and saw it and found it to be quite interesting. It's a Dutch, but apparently, maybe not. Google, don't trust Google. I read the fairy tale. It was a good fairy tale, but it might not be from the Netherlands. So what I do like, so here's some things that I like. As you can see, they do italicize like the name of the sword, the name of the boar, the name of the ship. So they do italicize things that are of importance. And if I were you and you had this deck, I would Google, do some searches on these things and find out what's behind them. Would we like that all to be in the guidebook? Yes, but they give you enough so that you can go look up some more information about this particular thing and learn about it. So at least they've called attention to it, which I appreciate. So I do think that the guidebook, again, especially in the major arcana, does a better and clearer job than the Heaven and Earth guidebook of just really pointing out this is what we're looking at. This is a god or goddess that we're associating the tarot card with. This is the rune that we're associating it with, and this is why we're associating it with it. So I think in the majors, it does a much clearer job of identifying things. So yeah, that's an example of what you get in the guidebook. Okay, let me take a drink. So that's the Fool. Again, the artwork's gorgeous, right? He's an amazing artist. There's no question. And yet, what's nice here? Let's make sure we point out, I should say, that this is very recognizable as the Fool, right? We have a person, they are on a journey, they have the staff over their shoulder, they have the bag of all the things that they need, they have a friendly companion. No, it's not a dog or a cat from some of the creepy cats in the old Marseille older historical decks, but we have a recognizable companion here, even though it's a boar. And so if you just look at this card, you can recognize this as the Fool card. So this is very clearly, associating cleanly with the tarot image, but then having that extra layer of the story of a god or a goddess on the major arcana cards here. So I do like that it's quite recognizable as a tarot card as well if you're going to use it for tarot. So next we have, and thankfully it cuts it off in this image, and when I first saw that I'm like, did they just like chop off the top of Manas in the magician card? But they don't. It is up here at the top and it is not chopped up, but you can see he's literally pointing. He's like, okay, you missed the rune over here. Well, let me show you where my rune is. And gives you the finger point to it, which is really good. So here we have the magician, and we have that associated with the rune Manas, which I think makes sense. And so again, this is associated with the god Heimdall, who is a guardian god. And so again, it gives you a lot, not a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, but they give you information. They point out everything that you might need to see about that for basics to lock you in to where you're looking at. And then again, you have this nice chunk over here on the rune, how to pronounce it in the way that they're pronouncing it, and then some good information to at least lock you into the rune. So again, I think that is quite helpful. And again, I think that he looks like the magician, right? He looks very powerful. He still has that sort of as above, so below pointing. Manas is about sort of the best of what it means to be a human being, right? To be human. And so having that, thinking of the magician as having everything that you need to access your own personal power, I think it works really well, both as an image and as looking at that as a traditional tarot card as well. Even though obviously we don't generally see roosters. We don't, do we see all of the, he does have a drinking horn here. He probably has a sword in his hand. I'm not sure what that is over there. I don't know necessarily that he's got kind of coined belts, just in terms of, does he have all of the, the artwork is so fantastic, isn't it? It's really gorgeous. But to me, that's very recognizable as a magician, which I think is great. Okay, moving along, because we'll be here all night. Here we have the High Priestess. Now, what I like about this card, obviously we have a satyr here, which would be a seer. Not just a seer, but a seer that then can also manipulate the web. But what I love is that in this case, if you look at the list, sorry, I get excited about some things, but if you look at the list, I need to stick a tab here. Let's grab a tab. Let's grab a tab. I need to take a peek at the poll and see how many people work with runes so far on the poll. I can't see it from my view. Maybe somebody can look at it, though, where we're at the poll, and put it in the chat. What I like is, oh, you can't see this part. If you look at the High Priestess, she is not the focus. The satyr or the seer here is not the focus, is not the god or the goddess that is associated with the High Priestess, but it is actually a primordial being that you can see in the background. And again, don't want to slaughter. I'm going to have to adhumbla, and that's not how you say it. I am 1000% sure. But this back here is this primal energy, and this is the god or goddess or primal being that is associated with the High Priestess, even though she's obviously front and center. Now, does this one that I didn't ever find the rune? I feel like there's a couple that I didn't ever find the rune. And they don't necessarily tell you. So then I'll pull out the larger one. Now, obviously having an auroch there for Uruz makes sense, but I don't see the actual. Oh, there it is. No, we talked about this. This was one in her hair. See, even though I knew it was there, I still don't see it in the card. So she's got Uruz on her in her hair. And in the card form, I can't see it at all. Okay, here. Caprine says 2% younger, 31% elder, 61% no, 8% Anglo. Yep, 61% no. Thank you for popping those in there. 61% of people that we can try to pull into the runes. Don't use the tarot deck as your guide into the runes, but maybe it will pique your interest, right? Okay, High Priestess, beautiful. But I do like that, you know, there's a couple decks like the Bohemian Gothic Tarot where don't just look at what's straight in front of you, look in the back of the scene. And sometimes the most interesting pieces are in the back of the scene. I feel like there's a couple cards that are like this in this particular deck. So there's that one. Here we have the Empress, and the Empress is what we have Frigg here. I love the giant, I'm assuming that's a giant distaff in the back. Yep, she's got the spinning wheel against the wheel. It doesn't say so, but it looks like a giant distaff of yarn in the back. And we can, of course, see the rune because it's glowing with Arcana and New Beginnings. Here, we don't have a pregnant Empress. We have a baby. But I think that, I know there's some people who don't particularly like pregnant or baby connotations in Empresses. I don't mind them. I think it is a part of creation. And it's fine for me. But I understand that some people don't as much. But there are other things going on than just that. I also like her sword and her shield. And again, the rune is quite obvious what we have here. I also do like that, again, very traditional Empress. She's out in nature and her throne is in nature. Now, so is the Emperor, but, you know, the tonal change from really being at one with nature and then a more lightning bolt Thor aspect for the Emperor lets them really stand out interestingly as a pair. So we have Frigg here. Now, I will admit, I thought that there would be the two cards that I thought would be Odin were not Odin. So I thought that Odin would either be the Emperor or the Hanged Man. Truthfully, I would have preferred him to be the Hanged Man, you know, in a runic deck, right? Because obviously he hung on the tree for 9 days in order to gain the runes. So I thought for sure he would either be in the Emperor or in the Hanged Man, and he is not in either of those cards. But one of the things that I did like is that I thought that the guidebook did a good example of, or a good explanation of why they chose Thor as the Emperor, right? Because Thor, and they talk about how Thor was really defending humans and was doing a lot of defending that was going on. And it talks about him defending Asgard, all the things that he was doing standing in defense, and explains why they chose Thor as the Emperor. And I thought they did a good job of saying, okay, because again, if I'm going to pick, you know, from a pantheon of gods and goddesses, if it's one that you're excited about and you are interested in that particular pantheon, you're going to have very specific ideas as to where you would put them. And it's not wrong for somebody to put them in another position as long as they describe it. I do think it's wrong to have left Hell out of the major arcana, but there you go. We won't say it too many times. No, we probably will. But anyways, I do think, again, he looks very Emperor. This chair looks very solid. He certainly looks like he can go and do the hard things that an Emperor has to do to stand in defense of his community and his kingdom. So he feels very Emperor. He's very ripped. All of the people are beautiful and ripped in here, as we see in most most tarot decks. And again, I generally think that we see our gods and goddesses as idealized versions anyways, so that's not too surprising. This one was really interesting because with the Hierophant, he looks very much no, he is not. He has not missed working on his chest, or more importantly, apparently his 6-pack or 9-pack or what other pack he has going on there. But you know, this to me, I could see Thor looking this way. I don't think that Thor would look like a slouch. I'm just saying. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. This one was interesting to me because I really hadn't read much about this particular god that was chosen. It was not one that I was, I think I might have heard the name, but it was certainly not one that I had done a lot of reading on. But the image looks very classic Rider-Waite-Smith. And I thought, oh dear, like, are they going to put like a, Christian kind of coming in to proselytize the Norse kingdom in this position, but they did not. It is the god Forseti, the son of Balder, who sits on a throne of stone. And so they do explain that Forseti is the god of justice and reconciliation. As hierophants and priests are mediators. So having a god of reconciliation, I think, works really well. He is a powerful force to help resolve issues between Vikings and tribes. The Hierophant represents an influential figure in society, a spiritual teacher. So again, I thought they did a good job. I thought that it was going to be a Christian. It to me looked like it was going to be somebody that was going to be a Christian representation into the deck, but it actually wasn't. I did think that the rune Rido for was also odd. Some of the rune choices I wouldn't have necessarily picked. But it does, they do speak of it more in the terms of taking a shamanic journeying aspect of Rido and this movement and cyclical actions and cyclical journeys. And so again, it made sense. I don't really care so much about the runes, again, in the deck. And I did think it was an interesting god to use in that position, and it made sense. So my first reaction was, ooh, and then my second reaction was like, oh, okay. I didn't know about that one particularly, but that works for me. So that is the Hierophant. It's the shamanic journeying. That's where they're keying in. Let's see what they say. Rido is loosely defined as riding or horse transportation. Again, I don't know the loosely defined, but okay. It is the idea of journey and travel. There is a power of freedom from this rune. Rido governs all rhythmic and cyclical actions. All this has happened before, will happen again. It's just going to be handed down. And it talks about communication and travel between the material planes and the heavens. So, I just kind of did a little diving into Rido and was trying to figure out where they could get it. And for me, it really says, okay, fine. It is this going into a journey between the realms a little bit more. I had to stretch with this one. I'm not going to lie, but again, didn't get the deck for the runes, so I'm okay with it. I can see where they're coming very loosely on that one. So then we have the Lovers card. Again, I think this is very recognizable as the Lovers. We even have the 2 trees here. We have 2 people. They're not in the normal embrace, but we're all kind of tired of the romantic, dramatic embrace of the Lovers card. So I think it is good to have a different image there. And then again, they tell us this is Adun and Bragi on here, and again talks to you about that story a little bit. He is the god of poetry. We have Gabo for him, and then we have Ewaz over here over her, and then they do again give you a good idea as to why they are normally doing that, or why they're using that rune. Because at first I thought, well, that's kind of weird to have Ewaz there, but it was, using that aspect of partnership and working together that the Lovers have. And then Gabo, obviously we have as the gift of poetry, and what else did they say? Poetry, just poetry, poems and stories there. So that made sense to me. Okay. So Lovers, and again, I think it's recognizable as the Lovers card. Here we have the Chariot. I saw this somewhere. I can't remember. Somebody made a comment like, oh, that was really ridiculous that we have the cats on the Chariot. But that is actually, Freya did have a chariot with a black cat and a white cat. So that isn't just cheesy goodness. That is there for a purpose. I think that I feel like at this point we're all kind of over the idea of winged, helmets on Vikings, but that's okay. That's okay. I am excited to have Freya on my birth card. Was this one? Can we see? Yeah, we have Kenneth right on the front of the chariot. That makes sense. The light of the torch glowing and illuminating your path forward so that you can drive forward confidently, right? Like that made sense there. And I certainly think that having somebody who actually did drive in a chariot is good to have on the card. So Freya here works fine. Hello, Dara. Dara's like, I don't like this deck. I'm just here to look at it with y'all. I do love this strength card. I think that I have in general mixed feelings about the deck. And some of that's the fault of just getting super excited over a particular theme coming out in a deck. And some of it, just different reasons why I have mixed feelings about the deck. But I do love some of the cards, and this is one that I just think is really beautiful. I do like that it is not, a lion, because as far as I'm aware, there are no lions in the northern countries here. Here we have Thrud, the goddess Thrud. She is the goddess representing strength. The daughter of Thor and Sif is well known for her battle skills, but we don't actually see her here in the midst of battle, but we see her in that powerful communion with the bear that I just think is really poignant and beautiful. So I actually really like this strength card here. And the rune on this one is Wunyo. We can see it. This one is glowing, which I guess is an interesting one as well for strength. They have, you can see what I thought about the rune for strength. So I'm kind of like, all right, this moment is a moment of joy, but Wunyo is not the rune that I would pick to depict strength, right? So it's kind of like, yes, this should have been Uruz. And again, they had to put one on each, so they, obviously felt that Uruz worked better where they put it. And I didn't get the deck for rune, so I'm trying not to overly, but this was definitely one where I was like, what? Like, why this one first, the strength card? But it's a beautiful image. I do like it. This is one of my favorite images in the deck. It's gorgeous. Like, this just is really a gorgeous image. I absolutely love it. It may be one of my favorite hermit cards ever. Yeah, and I even like Isa here. I think that works as kind of just slowing down and that kind of clarity of ice and of winter. I do. I like that rune for this card, but the image is just so stunning. We're obviously looking at the roots of Yggdrasil here, and we have Mimir, and it has on here the giant, a master of wisdom. He is pale and has deep blue eyes. His nose is red, and his hair is white. Mimir's beard grows long and plummets down towards the earth, just like the tree's roots. The figure of the rune Isa glows in the center of Mimir's face. Staves appear to the left and the right. A small glowing source of light appears on the ground. It is the eye of Odin and represents the cost of wisdom and knowledge. So you can't tell, but at the very bottom, here is the glowing eye that, of course, Odin sacrifices for wisdom and knowledge. So I think like this is just perfect. Like, I absolutely love this card. There's nothing I would really change about it. I think it's stunning. I mean, look at his face. Look at his face. I love this card. I haven't got to see it so close up. I know people when I do that, but it lets me actually be able to see it for the first. Actually, let me move this over. I'm gonna hold the line for a second. Let me pull this over here so I can look over here, and that. Oh, I didn't know I could do a full screen on StreamYard, but then I can't see the chat, so I'm going to exit that. Okay. Now, I am going to admit that I looked at this card far longer than I should have to find the rune, the rune here. Now, I really like what they did. Obviously, we have the Norns here. I feel like that's kind of makes, we don't have to point that out. We have the Norns here. It makes sense that they would be in the Wheel of Fortune. And they have sort of the web, when you put this symbol out with all of the webs, you can find all of the runes on that. So that makes sense to me. And I just thought, okay, that's the rune. It's not an actual rune, but I thought that's the rune. They're just going to use that symbol. And I thought that made sense. But then it was talking, and I didn't look to see what the rune was. And I'm like, I don't see any other rune here. I looked at this, and I know some of you are going to be like, it's super, super obvious. But I looked at this card. I'm like, where is a rune in this card? I can't find it. But there's Pertho right there in the strands, taking up most of the card with the rune, and I didn't see the rune there. All right, I confess, I totally did not see the rune there. So again, this makes sense to me. Chance or fate, opportunity. It's the gaming cup, roll the dice kind of thing. It makes sense why they would use Pertho here, but I didn't see it. Kristen, thank you. High five to Kristen for admitting it with me. I really looked at this. It's not in the tree. It's the thread right here. It's the thread itself. There's Pertho right there in the thread. I stared at this card trying to figure it out, and nope, didn't see it. Didn't see it. I don't know what made me finally see it. I cannot remember. Yeah, I don't remember what made me finally see it. But there you go. That makes sense. Again, it's the Norns. Yes, they're going to be on the Wheel of Fortune. It makes a lot of sense. Bada bing, bada boom. I love Justice. Obviously, Justice is one of my cards as a Libra, and I love Justice as Tyr or Tiwaz. Obviously, we have the rune glowing. We have his arm in Fenrir's mouth, and I think it's gorgeous. I think again he has not missed any of his sit-up days either. But I do think it is a very cool, very dramatic representation, and I think it works great with Justice. You also can see it on the you can also see it on the sword handle there, which I actually didn't notice before. I just noticed that one, but zooming it in, I could see it's on the handle of the sword as well. Yeah, I will say both the Heaven and Earth Tarot and this have a very Game of Thrones look to them, look to the cards, which I don't mind because I absolutely love Game of Thrones, and the artwork is absolutely stunning. Like it's just no question. And again, this would be one. Let me think. So far, this would be one, because even this, like if you didn't know anything about what we're looking at, I still think this looks like somebody retreating into the dark to gain wisdom. Like I think you would still see Hermit. I think, this you would still see, most people are familiar with the Fates or with the Norns. I think you would still see the Wheel of Fortune. This one might stop some people with like, okay, how is that Justice if you didn't know the story? But I still think it wouldn't take you much to look at the guidebook and say, oh yeah, okay, well that makes sense, right? So I still think this is a very usable deck, whether you like runes or not, you use runes or not, and whether or not you are into Norse mythology. I think that you would still be able to utilize this deck as a tarot deck. I know, he is hot. There's no question. It's an awesome card. So this is where I expected to see Odin. I kind of thought maybe the Emperor, but I expected I was going to see Odin here, but I'm not actually mad. I do think this works. And I saw another comment somewhere, I don't know, on some group, you know, somebody was commenting about this hanged man negatively, just in terms of that he had skis. Like, people, we are talking about the North country where there is snow for much of the time. There were gods and goddesses who utilized common sense and pieces of wood to be able to quickly move across the snow. This is not a recent invention. Somebody pointed out even Scotty used skis, right? So this actually works to be really, really well as a hanged man. So we have, I never know how to say it. Maybe somebody can tell me for once and for all. Uller. Again, I read Norse mythology when there was nobody saying it, and all I could do is read it in my head as a young person. I thought this was really good because you have him, you know, flipping upside down, right? And you have him in that moment when you flipped. And I was talking to my class here, because I had, when I was I think I was 30 or 33, one of my early 30 birthdays, I wanted to jump out of an airplane as my birthday. That was my birthday thing. I was going to just jump. I was not afraid of heights, but I don't particularly love heights. And I decided to drop off of an airplane, a very high up airplane. And so there is a moment when you fall and you're upside down, and and this is it, the whole experience. I would not do it again, but the whole experience for me is honed into this single moment when just first falling out of the airplane, and being head down, and just everything just stopping, sound stopping, and there's a lot of wind and you're falling really fast, but it was like everything stopped. And there was just I remember seeing the ground, you know, looking like a patchwork quilt where we were at. There were fields everywhere. It was just perfect silence and this perfect moment of clarity in that moment of that first moment of flipping. And so that's what I see with this one, is that moment when you're flipped over, and in this you know, he's like going high speed, he's skiing, he does this big flip upside down here, and then everything just freezes and he has this moment of clarity. So it works really well for me. Is it going to work for anybody else? I don't know. But I do think that it works really well. And he is the god of skis, and certainly used skis. So it makes a lot of sense. His arrows are about to fall out of here, though, and are falling out of it. So I, even though I was disappointed to not see Odin here, I've come to make friends with this card. Then we have Odin. So now we have Odin in the death position. And again, it's not what I would have necessarily picked, but I do think it works, right? It certainly works. And a couple of the people in class, when we were talking, looking at through it, were like, oh yeah, like they really saw Odin, you know, standing at the gate here very well. Like that was and obviously we know he stands at the gate to Valhalla. And so it certainly makes sense. I just expected to see him. I expected to see him in the Hanged Man, and I expected to see Hell in Death on the Death card. But I like, you know, they describe it here. They say Odin stands at the gateway to Valhalla. The rays of light to the promised land shine out into the darkness. Warriors are seen in the distance celebrating and telling stories. It illuminates the walls of bones and skeletons. So you can see both this transfer, you know, this where things are at, but then that change and that rebirth into the next place. Yeah. So Yeah, I agree, Kristen. My first reaction was, it should be Hal because she should be in the major arcana, and that's where you put her, right? But it certainly works just as well. And so, yeah, it talks about his two wolves being there. We obviously see the ravens that are there, and so it does work really well. I just expected to see him in the Hangman, and I expected to see Hal here. And of course, having Azus or Os as a rune is a no-brainer for the rune, so that makes sense as well. So there we go. There's our death. So I'm not mad about Odin being in the death card, but I am mad about Hal not being in the major arcana. Can we say that more times? Can we say, how many times can we say that irritates me? Okay. So obviously we have Sif here, and we have lots of little Daga's runes over here with the butterflies. And of course she has the golden hair, and then when her hair gets cut off by Loki, they make her, I think, some dwarfs. I'm brain denning. I think it was the dwarfs had remade her some actual hair of golden thread hair. So yeah, so that makes sense and is really beautiful. Yeah, okay. Sorry, we're taking a long time at the majors. Oh my gosh, we're over an hour. Okay. I do really love this devil card. I think that is a super, super awesome Loki, right? Because I think that I was kind of concerned because sometimes Loki gets depicted, yes, he's trickstery, but he's powerful, and I think he looks extremely powerful. He has the fire, and I have Naudis here, which is for need. He has the fire that this poor guy needs out there, freezing half to death. Whether or not he's going to give it and what's going to be the cost of that is very questionable. But image-wise, like, look at that. Like, that is a pretty awesome Loki. So I definitely, and again, even if you are not into, Norse mythology or anything like that, I feel like that's a cool devil card regardless. So there we have that. Jujubee says, it threw me for a loop to see Odin in the death card, but it does make sense to me. I agree. I think Hal should have been it. Yeah, for sure. Here we have the tower, which is awesome. Now, I still have never found the rune in this card. The rune that they have this is not a rune, and it's not even a bind rune that you have on here. Maybe so, but I still think he's awesome. I don't care. I'm not mad about it, Kristen. I think he looks awesome. So let's see. The rune that they have for the tower is Fehu, wealth, power of the heart, and self-imposed limits. I'm not sure about that self-imposed limits, but anyways, it is a cautionary tale of hoarding wealth. You do want to have your wealth go out, and you want to be careful with loaning money to family, right? But I don't know where the rune is. I've never found it. I've looked at it. I've looked at it in the large form. If somebody has this deck, oh wait, is that something over here? No. Is it? No, I don't know. I can't find it. If somebody has this deck and they know where it is, I mean, look at the details in this though. Do you see it? Jamie, where? In the foreground. Don't see it. Oh, the ground, like look at the ground. Okay. I see lots of skulls. I don't see it. I've looked at this so many times. Oh, this is the first time I've been able to zoom in like this because of the camera. Let's pause for a minute while we stare. What we're looking for, if you don't know, Fehu looks like kind of an F-ish. Well, I don't see it. I don't see it. So I'll keep looking at Jamie's suggestion off screen, but I've yet to find it. But anyways, I think it's really cool. No, it's not the wheel shape. That is the Galdra stuffer. It's just a sigil. And it is a cool sigil to have on there that's between his eyes, but it's not that's not the rune. So the rune is Fehu, but I can't find it anywhere on the card. So I don't know. If somebody finds it, please let me know, or Miss Jamie, like highlight it on a picture or something and show me what it is, because I haven't been able to find it. But anyways, it's a cool tower. I like it. And again, I feel like that is recognizable for other people, to have, this dragon and this fire, and you got people falling out of the fire, and, all this going on here. Like, I feel like even if you weren't into Norse mythology, you would recognize this as a tower moment. Like, this is pretty intense tower moment. So we have that. The star one I thought was really interesting here. Now, obviously they have, or made sense to me that they would have, in terms of this image, they would have Lagus because they're standing in the water. But I thought this was an interesting star choice. So they have Jormungandr, I know I'm slaughtering that, rising up from the sea. And he is going to devour this longship here, who is lost out in the storm. You can see the light of the star that would be guiding them. And then, of course, because we have different gods and goddesses, we have Njord, who is Freya and Freyr's father, as the god here, and he is defending the ship there. So, they have the good luck and good fortune to have Njord show up and save them, I guess. I do think it's really cool looking. I do think that the North Star, like, shining brightly is pretty cool, and having sort of this moment when you think all is lost, and you have this, obviously, again, extraordinarily six-packed god show up, giant to save you, is a moment in which all things come together, and all of a sudden things are going to look a little better than they looked the moment before. But it's a cool image for sure. I really liked this. I thought this was a really good representation. Two things I like about this. Let's pause for a moment. I know this is going to take forever. I will speed up in the minors, I promise. What I like is that they didn't, I was afraid that they would put like a male in the sun, because many cultures, the sun is associated with the male and the moon is associated with females. And this would not be the case in Norse mythology. It would be swapped. And so I do like the masculine fighters in the moon card. And I like, obviously, having, this is a no-brainer for the sun, right? So I liked that. So right away I was like, okay, that's really good. But I'm like, what's going on here? Like, I like this. What's going on here? So this is a description. Two warriors appear locked in conflict under a lunar eclipse. One is immortal, actually, and one is a demigod, but that's whatever. The warrior on the left is called Hothrus and is almost completely engulfed in shadow. So you get the shadow side of the moon, and then you get the light side of I really like this card. That's why we're going to pause here and read it. His body stretches long and thin. He's just stretched all the way out, as he attempts to get the upper hand on his opponents. He holds a short sword in one arm and is ready to drive it into the chest of his light opponent. The rune for, what is the rune he has on here? Is Algies, is what I would call it. They call it something else, but Algies is on his chest. The other opponent, Baldrus, is Baldrus and wears all white. He is a demigod and has a shield carrying the rune Othala. They fight for the love of Nana, symbolized by a small rose that appears between them on the ground. Darkness and light are bound to clash. Mani, the god of the moon, can be seen in the sky riding his chariot pulled by his horse. The wolf Hati chases him across the sky to swallow the moon. That's what we have going on up here. So it gives you all that description. But what I really love is that, A, we have the masculine moon, but B, we have this sort of contention between the shadowy aspect that is difficult part of the moon, but then there is also brightness and light that is connected to the moon. And so having both of those things kind of locked in a battle, I think is really gorgeous. So yeah, that is what I liked about that one. All right, sorry. I wanted to talk about that one because I thought it was really cool. So here we have obviously the sun, and we obviously have Sol here, and we obviously have Sowilo here on this version of Sowilo on here for the sun. So she makes it makes sense, obviously, that she is going to be on here. I don't think there's much else to say. She is the sun goddess. She is fire. She looks a little bit crazy. I don't know. She looks like I don't know. She looks a little bit like a crazy evangelist kind of face over there. But all in all, I think it's a cool card, and I think it was a no-brainer. So it's not surprising. This is probably this is my least favorite of the minors. It's not that I think that it's great to have Valkyries as judgment. And I think that the scene all around is really cool, right? Because you've got literally fallen soldiers, and they're rising up out of their bodies. Like, this fight scene is really cool. And even the Valkyries in the background are really cool. But like, who is she? Like, who is she? She looks like she's a teenager Instagram person. You know, she does not look like she's going to kick your ass or anything. So I'm not too, like, again, I understand that this is a deck of beautiful people, but she just isn't, she's not believable as a Valkyrie. Now, the scene is really cool. Again, really cool scenery there, but I'm not buying her as a butt-kicking Valkyrie. She does not have the power and the grit that I would expect to have showing up here. So I like that there's a Valkyrie as the judgment, but I don't particularly like the image. But that's okay. There was one or two I didn't like, obviously, in many decks, and you just have to live with it. I love this card. Truthfully, because I will say, the first time that I saw this card, that's true. Thank you, Sue. Okay, let's give a high five and a star to Sue. Thank you. You're right. And I love Buffy, so you maybe just redeemed that, right? Yes, I agree. She's a young Valkyrie. She is Buffy. You're going to expect that you're going to be able to best her, and you're going to find out to your detriment that you misunderstood her power. I can run with that, but I agree with Kristen. Valkyries are scary, right? Valkyries are like, you should come face to face and know you're about to die. That's how I feel like you should feel when you look in front of a Valkyrie. So still not my idea of a Valkyrie, but I do like the connection with Buffy. So I'll take that to help me work with that card. But okay, when I first saw this card, I was like, Hagelas? Like, why are we putting Hagelas, which is disruption, disruptive energy, hail? Like, why would we have this in the world card, which is where everything comes into balance, right? So I thought it was very strange, but I actually really love this card and their description of the card. So the great Ymir stands taller than the tiny mortals who appear in the bottom right corner of the card. However, they retain a human face and features. Their long white beard, they do use there in a very strange ways in the writing. I don't know if that is to get away from his and her, but this is a male. And it's other ones, and then sometimes they do use other pronouns, but it's kind of odd to read because it kind of throws me off sometimes. But anyways, because then you're kind of like, who are they talking about? Are they talking about the people at the bottom instead of here? But anyways, their long white beard flows in the breeze as they move over the land. Half of their body is humanoid, while the other half slowly changes into roots and branches of flora from the ground around them. After their death, the body will become the world, the blood, the ocean, the skull, the sky. The rune for Pertho, and it's not that this has got, well, is it in there? I guess there is Pertho on his chest, but the main rune is Hagelas. but it talks about the world representing the beginning and the end. And this is like this constant motion of birth and death and rebirth that's happening. Everything is disintegrating and then reforming over and over again, which I think is really cool. I really like this card, even though, again, my first inclination was, well, that's kind of strange, that would be the case. But it actually, and then we have the night and we have the sun over here. So I really do like this card. Even at first I was like, that's weird. This is not an ideal study deck for runes. No, I don't think so. And it's so no, if that's what you mean. If you have no knowledge of runes, would this be a deck to study? No. No, I really do believe if you are interested in working with runes, to get a set of runes, get a good book on runes, and study the runes that way. I wouldn't use this deck for that purpose. And again, I wasn't excited about this because of the runes. It's cool to have them there because it goes with the Norse culture, but I really wasn't, that wasn't my main focus. Okay, so that was the majors. I know that took forever. I'm so sorry. Mostly, I'm really, I think it's pretty cool. It's well done, minus the fact that I would love to have a conversation as to why Hell is not in the major arcana, and minus that one. Like, how about put a Hell here and get rid of her? Again, I like the Valkyries. If you have to have Odin and Death, then put Odin or put Hell over here. But I like that there's Valkyries here. I just don't like that image of it. So anyways, but all in all, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And the artwork is amazing, other than the teenage Valkyrie. So let's pause for 1 second before, and we're going to go faster in the minors, I promise. But so here's the thing. When the guidebook goes into the minors, right? Now, they do let you know that each of the minor arcana, each of the suits has a different rune set that it's focusing on. So in the cups, we have the medieval Futhark that's here. In the pentacles or the shields, they use the younger Futhark. This is the one I don't really get. So in the wands, they use the Armenian. I always say Armenian, but it's not Armenian. Armenian Futhark, which I had never heard of. I had to look that up. But what I didn't, mostly they're the younger Futharks. So it's like, okay, I can deal with it because most of it's the younger Futhark. And then, sorry, let me finish and then I'll come back to that one. Then the suit of swords. My suit is Anglo-Saxon, so I'm happy about that. I am working with the Anglo-Saxon right now, so that's pretty cool. But there's all kinds of rune sets. And so I thought that it was very strange that they would pick, the Armenian rune. So just a brief search. The Armenian runes are a series of 18 runes closely based on the younger Futhark, which is fine. But these were supposed to be runes that an Austrian mysticist and dramatic revivalist, Guido von List, had some sort of had visions and stuff. It kind of reminded me of Ralph Bloom, having visions on how to reorganize the runes. So mostly it is the younger Futhark, except for the last two. This one looks like Naughty's, but he calls it something else. And the last one is kind of similar to Gabo, but a little bit different. So those two are kind of made up runes, or they're actual, you can find a similar rune, but he calls them something different. But the first 16 are basically the younger Futhark. But, there's Swedish runes. There's, other runes that they could have used versus that particular. I'm not sure why they chose one that wasn't, a historical set of runes versus one that's kind of, brought in at a much later date. That to me was a little bit odd. So when you get, I'm trying to see how to approach this. When you get to the minors, I think the runes become very much in the background and a lot less useful. I mean, it doesn't mean that they aren't, they don't have a reason for putting them. They do. You generally get oftentimes multiple runes. Here's our how. We'll come back to that. They're just going to irritate me all over again. You have multiple runes. They do talk about what they mean, but they don't kind of name them. It's just by the sound. And so and it doesn't show a picture in the guidebook of what it is. So some of them you're like, I don't even know what I'm looking for. Like, which one is this one? Now I've got to go look it up. So I think the helpfulness of the guidebook starts to fall apart in the minors. The court cards are all bind runes. So a bind rune is where you're combining multiple runes and making a bind rune, which is really cool. We use bind runes if you work with runes. But I don't think they do a real good job of explaining the bind rune. Obviously, you can see this is algaes and dagas that are put together. And you can see Rido here. You can see Gabo. You could even make a case for Wunyo being there in the bind rune. But we have bind runes for the courts, energies coming together and being bound together, which I think is kind of cool. Again, I'm not opposed to that part, but I just don't think that the guidebook is as useful. I feel like I said that I'm relatively comfortable with runes. And, you know, when it just says that C is a container that can be filled to the brim, and I look here, I'm maybe not necessarily going to know which one of these runes are C because I'm not familiar with the medieval runes. Obviously, I can go look that up, but I don't necessarily think that it would have been hard to just put the image of the rune here with then that it is C, it is a container, it can be filled to the brim, and have your thing. So you have a very little amount with the runes in the minors. And then because they're using various different runes and they don't give you in the guidebook what that rune looks like, you might have to kind of go outside and try to figure out which rune that was. Now, once I went back and saw, okay, well, this is the medieval runes. So then I'm like, okay, well, here's the medieval runes. And even here, it's showing a C for the medieval runes. And this rune that's right here, and, you know, just doing a quick search, isn't showing up even in the medieval rune list. So I just feel like it starts to get harder to know what you're looking at without really trying to dig around like we had to do with the Heaven and Earth Tarot symbols. So it really wouldn't have been hard to just list what the rune look like and what is called and what the things are, to make it easy for you to at least know what you're looking at. Again, I don't intend to use this deck to use for runes. They're just, for me, artwork, especially in these minors. So it's not a make it or break it for me, but I think it's too bad. Like, there's a missed opportunity to make that a little bit easier. Okay, let's flip through the cups as tarot cups. Okay, so here we have ace. The ace, I think, is gorgeous. We have the drinking horn here. It looks really beautiful. Here we have the Two of Cups. Two people come. Again, very recognizable to the Two of Cups in any tarot deck that you would utilize. Let's see, do they give you any? Let's see what they tell you. Let's get what they tell you. So in the minors, you have your image description, two figures here holding the silver drinking cups, wearing the chainmail, give you some things. A rainbow appears high above the people. 4 runes appear above the Auroch and Odin. So you do get an idea that that's Odin over there and that kind of stuff, right? So you do get a background there. You get the meaning of the card. You get some upright and let's see, what do you get? You get upright keywords, reverse keywords, and then you get a bind rune. But this isn't a bind rune. They're not connected together. So it's like, okay, well, what is the bind rune? Gives protection, safety, and inspiration to your partnership. But that's not a bind rune. A bind rune is what the court cards are, where you're combining the runes together. So I just feel like it just starts to fall apart. He does give you what the sound of each one of these, but if you don't know what those sound look like, you won't know what one of those runes is any of these things. So it, to me, is very frustrating to and again, it talks about a bind rune, but there's not unless there's another bind rune here. That's not a bind rune. That's just a set of runes together. So, you know, so we had problems with the guidebook in the Heaven and Earth, and I think I have some problems with it in this. Again, if you're not going to care too much about the runes, it's not going to break the deck. Jonathan says we're going to come back. Sorry, folks. We're going to come back to the tower. Lower left-hand corner, okay? So lower left-hand corner, there is a rock under the wheat. Okay. Up, look at that. Now, come on, folks. There it is right there. Is a little rock with a symbol of Fehu under these wheat sheaths. Now, come on now. Could you have made that a little more obvious? Because I'm sorry, if you have this and you don't have a magnifying glass, there's absolutely no way you're going to see that. So I'm calling bullshit on that one. No, it is sorry for the guessing. No children should be watching this today. It's obviously the rune, and you guys found it. So I'm not saying bullshit. It's not the rune. I'm saying that should have been bigger. Good job, gold stars from Jonathan and Jamie for finding it. Okay. Gold stars. I appreciate. At least I know it's there. Okay, let's go back here. So I'm not gonna belabor the point anymore about the guidebook, but I do think it really falls apart in the minors. I think it does a pretty decent job in the majors, other than you can't find all of the runes, but I don't think that it holds out well. I do believe the same. The deck of Runic should be in there. Yeah, I do agree. So again, I've heard some people say, then they'll just get the smaller. I didn't even know there was a smaller set. I'm gonna go look it up and see. Or you're just getting the cards and you're getting a smaller guidebook. I don't know what's in the smaller guidebook. If you're just gonna use it as a beautiful deck, it is a beautiful deck. And I never intended to use it for runes. I will pull runes when I want to pull runes, and I like that there are runes on the cards. I'm just not, especially in the minors, paying over attention to them. But anyways, here we have the Two of Cups. Again, I think that's very recognizable as the Rider-Waite-Smith Two of Cups. We have the Three of Cups. We've got people feasting together, having a wonderful time, looking very clean. I doubt they would be this clean in this in the olden times, in the darkness of the northern reaches. But we have that sense of camaraderie with the Three of Cups. Here we have the four, and most of these don't. Let's see if it says, yeah, so it does let you know, like Loki is in this one, which you would recognize him from what he looks like, and he looks much more youthful here in the Four of Cups here. Probably looking a little bit bored, as in the Rider-Waite-Smith. Probably when he gets bored, he's going to get up to no good. But I use Four of Cups as more of a stable energy, and he's just kicking back. He's not up to any mischief. He's having a bit of a calm emotions, and that's a good thing. Okay, well, that's good to know. I knew that the Anglo-Saxons were, Kristen. The Anglo-Saxons, I know, were very obsessed with grooming and grooming their mustaches, and there were so many grooming tools that were found, but I did not know that about the Viking Age Norse people, so that's good to know. I just always think it's funny with these kinds of these types of decks. I think of it, and I think of Game of Thrones, where there's grit. It is difficult. Life is hard. It takes a lot of work to do the tasks that we can do so easily. And so, so I think whenever I see things like this, I'm like, I'm pretty sure if I, time travel back to this time, it's not going to be quite that easy. The food looks like it's a photo. I know. He's an amazing painter, isn't he? Anyways, I like this Four of Cups, but this one, I'm sorry, folks, this one irritates me. Now, I get it, right? I understand. So now we have Hell. Yes, we see, we do see the pretty side of her face. We do see the, the skeletal side of her face as well. We see how easily and powerful she is to, fiddle with the lives of mortals, right? But she literally looks bored. This is the Five of Cups. Even if this was the Five of Cups and you had Hell in it and she looked like grief stricken or, just lost in the power of loss of her and that happens to her in her story, but she looks bored. Like you would think this was the Four of Cups with like the Rider-Waite-Smith where she looked bored. So this really irritates me. Hell should be in the Major Arcana powerful self. B, if she's going to be in the Five of Cups, fine, but have her look like powerful expression of grief or something like that with, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of this at all. It says the sky and the ground seem to blend in with one another in grayness. A figure holds a hand up against their cheek. Half of their face is skeletal. The other is living. They don't even say that it's Hell. Like, so irritating. They said it was Loki. Why didn't they say it's Hell? Their single human eye is closed. Their other hand points down towards the ground. A stream of souls floods from into the landscape below two overturned drinking horns. Many more souls appear in the three upright horns. 3 runes appear on the card. This card represents grief. That does not look like grief to me. That looks like boredom. Grief is a process. It's not something that can be felt and done with all in a matter of moments. Remaining present. Okay, so now they do say the figure in this card is Hel. She is the goddess of the Viking underworld. Again, she's not the goddess of the Viking underworld. She's the goddess of the Norse underworld would be a better way to put it. That also, clearly I'm just irritated, so I'm getting nitpicky. Odin gave her the domain over Hel, and she now determines the fate of the souls. Like, that is just like the most scrunched up understanding of what happened to Hel to put her in the underworld, that I think she's longing for something better. I can't even read it. It irritates me. So yeah, she is. Elizabeth, she is sulking. She's like, why didn't I get to be in the Major Arcana? I don't know. This card irritates me. And it doesn't even look like the Five of Cups to me. It looks like the Four of Cups, which I don't particularly like in the Rider-Waite-Smith either. So on so many different levels, this card irritates me. But okay, there we go. There's that. There's a lot of people who work very closely with the goddess Hel. If I was somebody who worked with Hel as a deity, that would really piss me off. Like that would be, I think, disrespectful. To be honest, if I'm somebody that works with the goddess Hel, I would consider that to be a disrespectful image of Hel. That's my opinion. There we go. We now know the one, that's to me is the biggest irritation of the deck. There you go. So I have mixed feelings because I think it is gorgeous and I like it. I like the Game of Thronesy look about it. Yes, it's kind of idealized life version, but I do enjoy it, but that irritates me. Okay, we're going to move on. Here we have the Six of Cups. We are going to move along at a quicker pace. Here we have the Seven of Cups. Choose wisely. Don't get sidetracked by illusions. Here we have the Eight of Cups. I do like this Eight of Cups. Now look, this is a super powerful Eight of Cups. Why can't we have a super powerful Five of Cups, which is loss and grief? I'm sorry, I have felt grief, and it doesn't look anything like that. And so, anyway, we're gonna move on. But I like that we have Yggdrasil here with the squirrel that's running around in the tree. We've got. I just think it's pretty cool looking, going on a journey, a deep journey. So I do like that one. Here we have the Nine of Cups in the mead hall. Here we have the 10 cups. All is well in the world. Happiness. Everybody is together. Community. All is right in the world. Celebrating our victories and our triumphs in the 10 of cups. So then we have our court cards, which are bind runes, which again, I like the idea of having bind runes. I don't think I could be wrong. On the courts, yeah, the courts, they don't even tell you what the runes are. All they do is list the elemental attribution. So it's like, I mean, why not at least just say what those runes are? You know, you have Rido here, you have Anzus here. How hard is it to say that what the two, here's the bind rune and it has these runes in it. I don't know why that was difficult to do, and I don't know why that wasn't done. So, but I do like the idea of bind runes. Oh, is it in the kind? So see, I'm getting irritated. Hell has irritated me. Hell hath no fury, and I'm irritated now. Oh, there we go. Well, no, sadly, Igor, it does not. I mean, it tells you what it's going to do, but it doesn't tell you what the runes are. Obviously, if you know the runes, that's great. But for somebody who's just picking up this book, how hard is it to say these are the runes that are in the bind room and this is what it stands for, if that makes sense? I still think that should be clear. If it's a runic tarot, then the runes should be forefront and center on what are you using and why are you using it for. Okay, I'm going to stop being irritated by hell. Page of Cups. I like the youthful energy here. Again, Knight of Cups. I absolutely think that looks gorgeous. Very Knight of Cups. Very chivalrous looking. Beautiful Queen of Cups. And very kingly King of Cups. So, yeah, look, he is pretty awesome looking. I love his crown. So yeah, I like the quartz and I like the bind runes on the quartz. I just wish that they were lined out. All right, moving on. Am I irritating people yet? Have I irritated you yet? Look, somebody has to stand up for hell. Somebody has to be willing to stand up and say no. IT guy says, as a learning tool, it should definitely, yeah, no, I think that's a no-brainer. It really wouldn't be that hard. Thank you, Mr. Jonathan. Mr. Jonathan's irritated. Are you irritated with me about hell as well, Jonathan? Can we be irritated together? Okay, here we have the Ace of Pentacles, which are shields, which I think is great to use with the Pentacles. It makes sense. Here we have the Two of Shields. I like that this guy kind of looks like the guy from Vikings. I haven't watched that whole series, but you know how he's got the hair done that way, and you kind of from the side, he looks like whatever the guy's name is from Vikings. Again, haven't watched the series, so I can't tell you people. My friend of our family, yeah, they kept the traditional words on there, which I think makes sense, I guess, for people. Oh, it's not, there's not names on here. Yes, in the print, but they did say at the beginning that they were horns and shields. So again, you know, we had the same issues with the heaven and earth. I kind of expected there would be some issues there in terms of the guidebook, but okay. Moving on, I will be here forever. Here we have the Three of Pentacles working hard at his craft. Here we have the Four of Pentacles. This is really interesting with the burning ship on the 4. See, I think of the Four of Pentacles as holding your wealth. A Viking stands on a rocky shore facing a long ship. Their hair is braided. They wear traveling leathers. They hold what appears to be a box in their hands. The Draker has been set ablaze in the water. Someone has put 4 shields, many swords and shields in the ship. The fire burns everything, including the mast. A single rune grows on the Viking's back. The 4 shields displays a significant loss. Someone or a group of clansmen has passed. That's interesting. Why wouldn't that be on like the 5 of Cups instead of the board hell? I don't know. I don't think of the four. I don't think of the Four of Pentacles in this particular depiction. I guess I would look to the chest that she has in her hand to stabilize and hold on to her wealth. I guess that's how I would do that. So it's just kind of, that to me would be something better to have in the Five of Cups, because you have that sense of loss, of having literally lost people. That would to me go more in the Five of Cups, but. Again, we all do things differently. Here is the Five of Pentacles, the shakeup and the disconnection, the end of a battle. Nowadays certainly makes sense here. It's a beautiful, I mean, again, his artwork is absolutely gorgeous. Oh, I didn't even look. I stopped looking at, I stopped looking at the roots. Sorry. This is the younger Futhark, I believe, right? This is the younger Futhark. And the younger Futhark, let's double check it because I don't use I've never used the younger Futhark. So the younger Futhark, what do we have on here again? Let's pick it back up again. The younger Futhark is hail. So that is in the younger Futhark, because that's not hail in the Anglo-Saxon. It's the same shape, but it's changed. But this is, yeah, they do mean different things in the younger Futhark. So this is the shape of Hagalaz. So that makes sense because you have a disruption, but it doesn't make sense for a number 4. So that rune makes sense for the image. In the younger Futhark, but that doesn't make sense to me with the Four of Pentacles. But that's my interpretation of a 4 and the Four of Pentacles. So yeah, that's one of the things you have to remember is that, and they do put it in the front, right? They do put that this is the younger Futhark, what the younger Futhark is, but they do have that Hagel represents the influence of external factors. I don't know. I don't think that the guidebook and the minors are very good for the runes. And so, unless if you're going to use this deck to see it, one of the good things is it shows there are multiple decks. We have medieval runes. We have the younger Futhark. We have the Anglo-Saxon runes that we'll see in the swords, right? And we have that other Armenian runes that I had not ever heard of, right? So it's good to know that there are more sets of runes than just the original Elder Futhark, that everything's branched out from there. So I think that it's good that we have that awareness, but then I think there just has to really be a step up on how the guidebook explains it all, so that it just doesn't have people, if they're approaching runes through this, I feel like they'd be very confused, but that's just my opinion. So we have to speed up. So I'm going to ignore the runes. So here we have the Six of Pentacles. Just interesting. I'm not really loving the balance. I'm not really seeing necessarily balance. The leader stands proud and holds their hands in fists, keeping the balance. I guess keeping the balance through battle, through being willing to fight for their clans. I guess it doesn't feel so much like a balancey kind of thing to me, but there we go. Here we have the Seven of Pentacles. Patience with TUIs. Honing a spiritual craft like Galdring and the runes takes time and practice. This hair is short and red. They wear a tunic that seems to be oversized for their statue. They seem to be sealing the Vigvisor in some sort of wax. So I guess they're learning. But I think it's because they have a sword here. This is somebody who is learning his craft. If you read the guidebook, it makes sense to a bit, I guess, but it doesn't make as much sense visually looking at it. I don't know. I'm not feeling all these swords or shields. I'm sorry. Now this one looks like the Eight of Shields. This is a shield maker. He's doing the work here. He's perfected his craft. That makes a lot of sense. Here we have the Nine of Pentacles, who's usually somebody who's got themselves in a very good position of wealth and power and able to do what they want. It looks like what she wants is to spend some sexy time on the bear rug, but you know, no judgment if that's how you want to spend your time and your energy. Here we have, I feel like I need a breather and a refresh. I feel like I've lost my way. Folks, I have lost my way in this walkthrough. I don't know. Should we leave this up after this live is over? I don't even know. Here we have the Ten of Pentacles. We have the Vikings going off, and they are going forth to find more wealth and to keep the energy flowing and moving. I'm not sure that Vikings are the legacy, but they certainly did spread their seed hither and yon, right? We have then settlements all over the place, and that sort of idea of moving forward to the next generation and the next generation, setting up, they're trying to find resources, right? This was a time of great battle and fighting in order to maintain their for their people who needed food and needed slaves and needed all the things that trying to gather resources. I've lost my way. Sacred Quest came in right when I lost it, didn't you? Oh, I'm so sorry. It was better before that, I promise. I feel like it was more of my typical walkthrough before the Four of Cups, and then I just went downhill. Kristen said they should have removed the runes and called it the fight. And it's too bad because again, it's really, really gorgeous. Claire says Eric agrees with you guys. Thank you. I just feel like I've lost it because I don't normally. Again, you know, this is one of these things. You get high expectations because you get excited. I really was excited because I do think the artwork is stunning. So there's no question that the artwork is stunning. Will I, work with this deck and pull some cards and things with it? Yes. I never expected to utilize the runes on it. Again, I have tons of rune sets and I use them all the time. And I didn't expect that this would be one I would pull a card for a rune on. I don't think that's the purpose of it. So having runes on the deck is great. It just adds to the artistic flavor of it, and it is connected with the culture, and so it works for me, right? It's a beautiful deck in that way. I just started to go downhill. So when we leave those out of the equation, I still think a couple of the cards are questionable. Yeah, the artwork is just stunning. So I am going to use this outside of the runes, but trying to do a walkthrough. And now, because I really don't want it to be, bashing the poor deck because it's a stunning deck. I just think that if you're going to have this much stuff about runes, it just needs to be very well laid out in the guidebook and stuff so that there's not any kind of confusion about what you're trying to portray, I guess would be my takeaway here. Okay. Here we have the page. Again, I like the youthful pages in here. It really works quite well for page energy. I also do like that. I think most of the page or the two pages we've seen so far have looked like young girls. So I do like decks that have girls pages and then the boys if you're going to do the knights and then so on. You have a balance of the genders in the quartz. And I also, again, I do like the bind runes on the quartz. Page of Pentacles. He looks awesome. Knight of Pentacles. Very large looking draft horse, which I like to see in Page of Pentacles. And here we have the Queen of Pentacles. I love the green that pops here. And the kings have all been very kingly and very solid looking there. So I do like the King of Pentacles. Okay, so that is the Pentacles. Next up are the Wands, and the Wands, let's at least try to hold it together and be helpful. This is the Armanen runes, which are basically, as I said, they are almost all of them are the younger Futhark, and then the last two are sort of iterations of the Jamie. I don't know if I'm going to keep this walkthrough up. I don't think this is I think it's great for us in the midst of it, but I don't know if it's going to be that useful in watching backwards. Oh, all right. I love this Ace of Wands. I think it looks really gorgeous. Again, the artwork is stunning, so as it should be. I really like this Two of Wands. I really like this. He looks like he is creating a magical, he is creating a path with magical ways, which I think is really gorgeous. So I do like this more so because it's still got that Rider-Waite Smith. You've got the two staves, but he's creating a pathway through the power of utilizing the runes. And so I quite like that. Jonathan, he's putting up with me. Here we have the Three of Wands. That's a pretty typical use. I'm not sure why they wouldn't have used Ingwas with the sort of sailing over the ocean. But you know what? Again, this is the younger. This is a set of runes I am not familiar with at all. Let's see what this one is in this set. Let me 12. No, this is still tier. Okay. Here we have the Four of Wands celebrating again with some sexy time. Look, you know, live your passions. I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I do like it's gorgeous. You know, we have this gorgeous kind of misty forest here. Let's stop for a while before we get to the castle. And it works. They're celebrating. It works for me. Now look at her. Like, she looks awesome. So here's the Five of Wands, and she looks super powerful and pissed off. Like, why can't Hell have this sort of intensity, or the Valkyrie have this sort of intensity? I don't mind entirely the romance novel covers because, you know, we see that a lot in decks, and I can get on with that. I think stopping to have some sexy time is not a bad use of time. Let me look at this one. Someone has tied a person to a pole with leather straps. Their mouth hangs wide open. No, she is like roaring her pain. Like, that is a pissed off person. They are screaming curses. Yes, they are screaming curses out to the four unknown assailants. They wear dirty clothes. The symbol of Thor's hammer hangs around their necks. Like, this looks like a satyr or witch or something being burnt at the stake and defiant to the end. It's a very powerful Five of Wands. I'm not sure why you would have Issa here. But maybe that is something different in this particular rune set. But it's a powerful image for the Five of Wands. Here we have the Six of Wands, standing victorious, waving clouds. Got Gandalf over here, having helped to defeat the battle. Definitely has a victorious feel to it. Yeah, and that's the thing, Jujubee. I think that I do, like, I'm glad I have it. So I think, like I said, it's a lot about expectation, right? If you're really psyched because there's not a lot of decks, there are not a lot of Norse inspired decks out there. And the ones that are there, none of them really call to me to use them at all. And I think one of them is people do really like, but you can't find it, right? And so you're so psyched up for it that you kind of, you kind of trip your own self up and expect too much. I think it's a beautiful deck as it is. It's just, I actually really like this one for the Seven of Wands. This is Gandalf. Yeah, thou shalt not pass indeed. And I'm for it. I think it works really well for the Seven of Wands. This is like a powerful sorcerer who owns the power of the gods and is crashing it down and standing in defense. It works for me. I also really love this card. This is actually one of my favorite, kind of going back to that Two of Wands, where he's opening the pathway magically and powerfully. But now we have him at the Eight, because the Eight of Wands irritates me in the Rider-Waite-Smith. Like, I don't see it as swiftness. It's about a pulling together of power. And so having those in that position like that, I love wands that do that, because it's that focusing in and that honing and that mastering of that power to that single point of power. I really like that. And so this looks to me how I would read an Eight of Wands. So I actually really like this Eight of Wands. I don't think this is Naughty's, because you would think, why would you have two like Naughty's for this kind of one? But this is actually a different, it's something different, and I'm not sure what it means. Well, let's see what it says in here. Even though, again, I haven't had this to be super helpful. See, it does say Nauth. One of these is being Nauth represents absorbing new knowledge, and again, because I don't know this rune set, studies previous knowledge and wisdom. So it makes sense. I mean, I really like this visual a lot. I think it's cool. Oh, I've got cards all whopper-jawed here. Alrighty, here we have the Nine of Wands. Again, quite powerful. I like this older guy here. And then look at the 10 of Wands. I like this. I like this 10 of Wands. The Wanderer, of course. Odin shows up in the 10 of Wands. Let's see if we can get a good look at his face and his glowing eye and his hand and all the magic here that's going on. We got something going on in his waist. I can't quite see. It does feel more like Woden, although the Anglo-Saxons, it's Odin. This would be Norse in this one. Woden would be earlier than Odin, and more would be in the Anglo-Saxon runes, which is the swords. But this they say as Odin appearing again, this time in his form as a magical creator. He holds his staff in one hand, the gnarled bark growing up into a tangle of wood at the top. His belt glows with the power of the horns of Odin's sigil. He stretches the fingers of his other hand out into the roots of Yggdrasil. Purple energy flows through him, and it's a 9 budding realms. We are bearing witness to the creation of the Norse cosmology. And then it lists them all. His raven companions are hovering nearby. So again, rather than there being the sense of, because I don't read the 10 of Wands as that weight or that burden. I mean, there's a burden in this much power, but as the culmination of the suit of fire and transformation and wands, I think it works really well. And again, this, I'm not sure what these represent man and year, inner feelings which drive you, positive creation, and the path to perfection in this rune set. So powerful. Here we have a youthful page of wands. We have a knight. I do like the wands quartz are very, very fiery, which are gorgeous. Queen of Wands and the King of Wands. So I do like all of the fire existing in the wand suit there. Here we next have my suit, the suit of swords, and this is using the Anglo-Saxon runes. So we have the Ace of Swords. I do really love this two of swords. I'm a big fan of the classic just gorgeousness of all of the two of swords. I always look for that, and I think it's really beautiful, and I love it. Here we have the Three of Swords. This is obviously more to the fact of the Rider-Waite-Smith version of the Three of Swords. I don't think that he's going to have time to learn from this experience because it looks like he's about to get his head chopped off. But it is interesting that they have Dagas here because that does speak to the dawning of a new day, right? He's going to go to Valhalla. But there we have the Three of Swords. Here we have the Four of Swords, taking the rest, literally. Here we have the Five of Swords, again, pretty typical. At what cost to this battle? Here we have the Six of Swords, going to better lands. Here we have the Seven of Swords. I do like this one. You know, we often don't know. We have Gar here. You know, you don't know what's going on. So for me, the Seven of Swords, you know, I know it's about thievery in the Rider-Waite-Smith, but that's not how I see the sevens. Is about growth that comes from a foundation of something. And in swords, it's the foundation of knowledge, right? So we don't know what's happening in this scene. We've got to look at it a little bit closer. We need to get beneath the surface to figure out what's going on. That's how I read the Seven of Swords. So this works for me, right? We've got the scene. Something is happening here. We don't know who's the good guys, who's the bad guy. We don't know what's happening. So we better figure out what's happening before we go, you know, attacking somebody. Here we have the Eight of Swords. Pretty cool. Obviously, we are normally seeing a female in the Eight of Swords. I'm not mad at this. I think this works quite well. I do like Stan or Stone as this, like standing firm, knowing yourself, knowing your own mind, not getting tripped up. Don't get yourself all shook up here. Just stay firm and you're going to find a way out of the situation. So I do actually like that combination. Here we have the Nine of Swords, very powerful, definitely, you know, Game of Thrones feel to the back of this, to this one, but it's quite powerful. And then I like this Ten of Swords. We've got all these swords here. So much has happened. So much power gained probably in the battle, so much power lost in the battle. You know, it's this culmination of all of the challenges and the victories of the Suit of Swords. So this works, yeah, for sure. Like he looks like he's about to get up and say, look, these nightmares, they don't stop me. But I like that Ten of Swords. Here we have, you know, me as my younger self getting ready to become the warrior woman that I am. Here we have me as a warrior woman on the back of the horse going to fight the, you know, for justice. Here we have me as the Queen of Swords having taken my throne. And here we have me in the past life as the King of Swords. I can't deal with this. It is gorgeous artwork. I absolutely love it. I'm very happy with the sword suit. That's my suit. And I promise I have not taken any drugs or drank before doing this walkthrough. I can live with all these. I'm really happy with the Ten of Swords, which is usually obviously the culmination of my suit, and it always isn't the way that I read the Ten of Swords. So I'm really happy. Yeah, see, this is you can see all the iterations of me. I don't know what happened. I feel like this reading took a left turn at hell. And we can't even blame it on Loki. Like, I could see, like, Loki coming in and putting us in the wrong direction, but we can't even blame it on Loki. We have to blame it on Hell here, because she just got me irritated. Yes, the backs are gorgeous. I prefer the cups. I'm a bit deceived with the swords. I really do. I'm happy with the swords. I like the cups too. Really, for me, I'll have to go back over the. I was not in a good space, was I? In the I wasn't in a good space with the pentacles. Some of the pentacles, I was kind of like, I'll have to. I will have to go back over the pentacles. I'm black. I did the edges black, Jonathan, because all of the back is really black other than this inner blue. I thought for a minute, of doing like a really, really dark, like blue black, or like doing two layers, like maybe doing a blue and then a thinner coating of black. But I'm really happy with the black. I think it looks really good. Yeah, I'm really happy with how that turned out. IT guy says, don't you think if they fix the guidebook revision 2 would make it all better? I think it would definitely help. And again, I don't think any of that is going to stop you from utilizing the deck as a tarot deck, right? I don't really, again, had no intentions of utilizing the rune portion, but some people might have, right? Some people might have been excited about the rune portion of it more than the Norse culture portion of it, right? So, and I would hate for somebody to experience runes and think, wow, this is quite a jumble, and not be, and kind of maybe not ever get to really working with runes because they are overwhelmed by the runes and not really being able to see, and maybe not paying close enough attention to realize, well, okay, these are 4 different sets of runes that are here, and one of them is kind of an odd set, right? So, that would be my concern, is that if this was somebody's entry into runes, they might kind of feel like, wow, that's a bit of a jumbled mess. I don't think I'm going to go any further with it. And that would be a shame, because runes aren't a jumbled mess. Runes are really quite succinct and quite powerful. And so, and you can see that in the major arcana for sure. And again, it's this mixed feelings about it, because I do actually like that the minor arcana explores the different rune sets, because there are different rune sets. I really only have an issue with the one set of runes. Like, I think they could have picked a different set of runes for that. So I'm really not, that I think is a great idea to do that. So it's just more that I think then the guidebook needed to be really much more clear in those minors, because you're looking at different kinds of rune sets, and the symbol changes meanings across some of those rune sets, and so that gets really confusing. So it's those kinds of issues, right? No, they shouldn't have necessarily asked me at all. So I'm really, it's just, just thinking through those things where this could get confusing. But as a tarot deck, I think that it's very usable and very doable. No, I don't. I think that's the one that it's not easy to find, isn't it? I'm not sure. I don't have that. That's why I was so excited about this deck. I really don't have any other Norse, Scandinavian themed deck. I'm just going to make a tab and put that in it just so I can save that to look at it later. Miss Sue, Clive. I think is that the one that's not easy to find? Clive. Now I've got my keyboard all confused, and now it's like, please connect. Clive. Nope. I thought this was the number to push for it, but now it's not going to. Clive, we'll do it up here. Not Clive Owen, Barrett Norse Tarot. I've heard a lot of good things about. Yeah, I think this is the one. Isn't there a book with this one that's supposed to be really fantastic? But I don't see the paperback book is $169. Yeah. So, he reprinted it. I did not know that. I will have to look for it. The last time I had checked, which could have been, years ago, you couldn't get them. I didn't know it was reprinted. So I will definitely see if I can IT guy says it was a fun walkthrough. I really do feel bad because this is the truth. Like tarot decks are a tremendous amount of work, right? It is a tremendous amount of work. So I really do take my walkthroughs serious, because somebody's put a lot of work into doing this, and as long as they make a good case for why they choose to do certain things, I am all on board with that, right? This is somebody's expression of that, and a lot of work has gone into that. So I do take that very, very seriously. And the only thing for me is, it just needs a better representation in the minor of the guidebook on the runes, and hell should have been in the major arcana. That one I can't take the punch away. That one just should have been. And oh my goodness, now everything's falling. Hell's throwing things at me. Look, I am advocating for, oh no, Jamie. I don't know if they're running a sale or not. I got mine from Llewellyn. And again, I'm super happy I have this. This is not a deck that I'm going to get rid of. I am going to do some readings with it, and I will check back with you. I usually at the end of the year, so in December, I go back through all of the decks that I have walked through and sort of give you an update on what I feel about them. Obviously, I'm not going to have a lot of time to be able to actually do readings and things with this deck, which is unfortunate, but I will try to utilize it in some personal readings, so that before, I do my end of the year wrap up, just to get a feel for it, because I personally think it's going to be perfectly fine used as a tarot deck, which is what it is a tarot deck. And so I think it's going to be perfectly fine, and it's absolutely stunning on that. Like, look at that. Like, it's really gorgeous. So I'll try to be able to check back with it. And when I'm not such a goofy mood, I guess, I don't know. I'm embarrassed, but that's okay. Like some of these cards, like that card is absolutely powerful. I have not, I don't want to slaughter your first name. I am so sorry. Looks like Mercules, but I have no clue. I'm so sorry. I know this is off topic, but I need to go to your channel because I was wondering if you've done a review. I have not. I have the Murder of Crows out to do a walkthrough. It is very intriguing, but I haven't done a walkthrough of it as yet. It is on my board to do a walkthrough, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. It almost feels like, let me grab the Heaven and Earth real quick because I'm just kind of curious. I absolutely love the back of the Heaven and Earth. And again, with the Heaven and Earth, the issue with the symbols doesn't really bother me because I never intended to really use it. To me, it's just kind of decorative there. I actually have really enjoy the keywords that are on the bottom of this. I actually think it's quite interesting. I was going to say, see, there's a very different tone. I thought maybe this was actually lighter in color, but there's a vibrancy about the Runic tarot that is quite different when you look. This is very Games of Thrones, right? Everything seems to be gray, gray toned. It's really beautiful. It feels very wintry. They both have a sense of feeling of winter, but this is like an intensity of, you just think about the intensity of the runes, you think about the passion of the gods, the Norse gods and goddesses, if nothing else, were full of life. I always try to just, to me, how I best describe the Norse pantheon, and really all gods and goddesses, but especially the Norse pantheon, is they are like an exaggerated humans, right? They have all of this power of the gods, but they have all of the intensity of our strengths and the intensity of our flaws in the Norse pantheon, right? And so, but there's a vibrancy about visually, even though there's dark and there's shadow, there's actually a vibrancy of color about the Runic tarot, that it isn't more of a softness and a mistiness about the heaven and earth. So it is a quite different, it would be interesting to use them maybe together in a light and a shadow, where I would actually put the Norse or the Runic tarot as a the light and that vibrancy and that passion and that all in sort of, I am all in on love, I'm all in on war, like they're all in passion wise, and then you get more of that mediated sense of heaven and earth, and that Christian overlay that comes in and tries to bring structure to a very powerful, passionate space. So I think there's a way to maybe use these in conjunction with each other in some way. But they have very different, I don't know if you guys can see that from here, but they actually have quite a different energy. There is a banked, you know, you got a lot of people who are, you know, not engaging in sexy time or having to not engage in it fully with the issues that came in with that sort of organized religion that came in there, and you can see a different energy. There's even a calmness, though, a lot more of a calmness and a feeling about this deck versus the vibrancy and the just that all-in passion feeling about this one. So it's different. Yeah, it's a dark, and I wouldn't have guessed that, right? And I would have thought maybe that the Norse one would have a bit of a darker overtones, but I actually think the heaven and earth has a banked energy and a little bit more shadow than the Norse one. I keep calling it the Norse one, the Runic tarot. So it's quite interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that would be the case. So definitely different energies. I've had a couple people that were saying, have you done it? Have you done the walkthrough? Wondering if they were just sort of reiterations of this, because it's the same artist, whether they were just going to feel like two different decks with, you know, it's the same deck with different themes, but feel very similar. And I actually don't think that's the case with this deck. So I don't know. I will get back with you on that. Again, I don't have so much time before I do my end of the year check-in, but I'll try to play around with these two decks over the next couple of weeks before I wrap it up at the end of December, to try to give a little bit more feedback on using it, since I'm not sure that this has been the most useful walkthrough. All right, folks. This went on way longer than it should have. Again, a lot of respect for I think that the creator of this deck, Jack Sephiroth, his artwork is absolutely amazing. There's no getting away from the fact that he's an amazing artist, and it shows on both of the decks that I have with him. So much props to that. Just do a version 2 and give Hal her place. All right, folks, I'm getting out of this. I hope that you guys had a good time, at least, and maybe got something out of this, and that you enjoyed yourself. I appreciate you hanging out with me through a little bit of silliness, and I will talk to you guys all later.